Good afternoon. I am George McGurn, and Joan Kleinman and Carol Goldenberg and Deborah Shearer have written correctly about me in the brochure, so I will proceed immediately. When I had a cup of coffee with Carol and Deborah in the spring, in May, I believe, they asked me to speak about something that I cared passionately about. And I'm pleased to do that this afternoon. I believe that I met Carol and Deborah through my neighbor and good friend, Leonard Sharp. I'm sure many of you know. And I was helping Len construct his sukkah week before last, which was a nice invitation. I've helped him on several occasions to take it down, but I've never been invited to help put it up. As usual with Leonard, we were talking about things like the Talmud and the fact that the book of ethics really should be, he thought, translated into the book of everyday life. And we talked about being wise, rich, and powerful. And before I get into the substance of my comments this afternoon, I really wanted to thank all the team that organized this occasion. Because, as Len is talking, being wise means you really know how to listen and therefore how to learn. And I think that's what Berkshire Speaks is all about. Well, like everyone, I want to talk about the Berkshires. And the Berkshires have been an important part of my entire life, although I grew up outside of Chicago. My grandmother was from Pittsfield. My grandfather immigrated from Canada to work for General Electric. Met my grandmother. He was also an inventor. He invented something today we call integrated circuits in the basement of 52 Circular Avenue. General Electric thought that since he was on their payroll that they actually owned the patent. So he packed up his 8 daughters and went to Chicago and started a company called Jefferson Electric that later became part of something called Intel. And we always came back to our extended family every summer, at least a week, often a month, on Pontuzic Lake. And right next to our house was my great uncle Jim O'Brien's house, and he was a self-appointed local historian. And he would bring me to the Sprague Electric Factory on the last day of its operation, or when GE Plastics was closing, or the Arsenal was closing. He seemed to think that this would be a good way for me to spend my summer vacations, to watch the decline. And it was a stimulating experience. Later, living in New York, my wife and I got a second home in North Egremont in the late 70s. And I went off to the then Soviet Union, I thought, for 2 weeks. And 25 years later, I'm still there, and although in different parts. And my wife started a business when I was based mostly overseas in Lenox, a retail business. So when I would return, or when she would come over to Moscow or Tbilisi or wherever I happened to be at the time, she said, "You're doing all this economic development stuff over here. What about the Berkshires?" And as Elizabeth said, we have a similar, who's the boss of your house? We have a similar kind of situation. And I decided that what I could really do is combine my passion for economic development with my current activities in the sovereign country of Georgia with the Berkshires. So we came up with this notion of the Georgian-Berkshire Partnership. And you may be surprised to know that the pillars of the economy of the country of Georgia are quite similar to the pillars of the economy in Berkshire County. Educational institutions, cultural institutions, agriculture, tourism. It's got a familiar ring here in Berkshire County, both past, present, and future. So we had great enthusiasm on both the Georgian side and on the Berkshire side to begin to have these groups meet, interact. When Elizabeth gave her list of current needs of agriculture in the Berkshires, it's pretty identical to what one of the things that I've done in Georgia in terms of setting up the processing, distribution, the whole market chain of the agriculture sector for farms that, although it's mostly an agricultural economy, their farms are smaller than the farms of the Berkshires by far, actually. And we also have a lot of, through Tanglewood, through Jacob's Pillow, through Williams College, a lot of connections that people didn't even know existed outside of their own universe between Berkshire County and Georgia. And it even got funded. And then my nemesis, Mr. Putin, had some plans for the region over the course of this year. So it is going to be a program when the timing is right, and it actually is going to be an important toolkit in our State Department's diplomacy, hopefully in the near future. But during that process of talking to all of the official, unofficial, not-for-profit, governmental representatives, for-profit organizations, it became clear to me that if we were really going to help economic development of the Berkshires, we need to nurture the networks that we currently have, but we really need to bring in different kinds of networks, more networks. And I was able to do that because of my long history with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank, the State Department, USA, things like that, which doesn't normally do things in the Berkshires, to put it mildly. But because this had a foreign involvement dimension, foreign policy dimension, we convinced people that economic development on both sides would be a very good idea and something that would add to sustainable economic activities here in the Berkshires. But it did get me thinking about many of the issues that have already been raised here this afternoon, about our demographics, and I was quite taken aback to recently hear, actually on numerous occasions, that our retired population in the Berkshires is larger than our public school population. Now, being retired in the year 2014 doesn't mean what it used to mean. And certainly the retired population of the Berkshires is a remarkable group of people with remarkable networks. Many of them are semi-retired. And I think that what we've got to do as a real priority is to focus on what has been mentioned already today, this millennial generation. And define those born between 1980 and 2000. What we really need in order to do that is a grand coalition between our retirement community and the students around here. Now, there are lots of ways to get involved here, and many, many people are already. But I think we could do a lot more by bringing more of these networks, not just financial networks, but ideas, enthusiasm, and commitment. I was in Washington this week at the Brookings Institute, and Isabel Sawhill gave a presentation on the 3-year study she's been doing on the millennials that is quite interesting. It's actually available on podcasts if anyone wants to check out the Brookings website. And one of the things about the millennials that really, according to Bell Sawhill, separates millennials from the baby boomers is they really want closer family ties, more intergenerational activities. And they do indeed want to have connectivity and quality of life is very important for them and their children in a way that certainly that's always been true, but with the particular emphasis that separates out this millennial generation from the baby boomers. So I think that my passion to contribute to economic development in the Berkshires is going to be through our school system, Southern Berkshire Regional School System for me, because broadband connectivity, fast connectivity, and of course high-speed rail, however it is going to absolutely be crucial to attract not just people who come back, but people that don't even know about the Berkshires and its proximity to New York and Boston. And the assets that we're also proud of, and whether it be Shakespeare and Company, Tanglewood, and theaters at Williams College, or whatever it is, we have more assets here than many of the sovereign countries that I've been working in. And we've got to have better ways of communicating that among ourselves and then to the outside world. And the workplace is changing. People working from home is in many cases not only possible, but is even being encouraged by many employers. And this really gives us a wonderful opportunity to attract the millennials and their children, of course, to the wonderful life that is available here in the Berkshires. And I think Berkshire Speaks, as I said in the beginning, is about wisdom and about listening to people. And the quality of life makes people powerful. and the richness of life in the Berkshires is certainly something that we've got to do a better job of marketing. And I'm glad to hear that that's very much on the agenda, and that we're listening to the millennials. So I hope all of you in this room will join me in committing or recommitting once again to this precious Berkshires that we love. Thank you.